Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast. A new series that we're launching today is called the Crypto Data and Insights series. And this data is brought to you by Santiment. And I have Brian, who's head of content at Santiment. Welcome, Brian.
Great to be here with you, Tony. I'm excited to talk markets.
For sure. I certainly appreciate all the data and insights that you guys at Santiment put together. It's very insightful. I love playing around and going through all the details, and it really helps me in my strategy in understanding what's happening with the market, investing, and much more. But tell us about yourself and what you guys do at Santiment.
Yeah. So I'm the head of content at Santiment. It's my job to kind of see the recent developments in the markets that are going on, find what might be useful to share with the community. If you guys have ever checked out our Twitter at Santiment Feed, we basically go through, 2 to 4, sometimes 5 daily posts about the most pertinent information about the markets. So I'll write insights about that there. I also do recordings like this regularly on our This Week in Crypto live stream on the Santiment Network YouTube page. So essentially, my job is to cover anything and everything going on in the markets, whether there's a certain little halving going on or anything else.
For sure. Now, Bitcoin having a correction today. I would love if you can start with Bitcoin. Tell us what are some insightful information you're seeing on that front.
Yeah, so it's, as always, it's a complicated answer, but in short, the combination we don't like to see is a little bit of whale and shark selling,
Mm.
along with small traders feeling really optimistic and confident in the markets. And that's kind of what we're seeing at the moment. It's as soon as we started to see this dip below 70K and it got to 68, 67, and 66, we saw this huge influx in people being interested in buying and spamming words like bullish and bought and bottomed and all sorts of things that exemplify a community that's very optimistic about the markets. Meanwhile, we're seeing a little bit being scraped off the top in terms of holdings from Bitcoin wallets that hold anywhere between 10 all the way to 10,000 Bitcoin, which is kind of that sweet spot that holds about 2/3 of the supply, that has a giant influence in where prices move next. So that's kind of the main thing that we're seeing right now that more or less explains this drop and may continue to explain further drops if the pattern persists.
So it seems like this is a pretty big profit taking level for many of the whales. Maybe that they had this earmark, then maybe based on the charts, they're like, okay, things are going to cool down a bit here. That doesn't mean the bull market's over, but this is a profit taking level for us.
Yeah, I would call it kind of modest. It's certainly not a severe profit take where there's this, FTX November 2022 level of scraping money out and leaving it with the small holders who don't know what's going on. It's kind of just a very mild profit take, which I'll show when I share my screen here. But visually it looks to be modest at the very least, and I could see this kind of being a strategy where key stakeholders are trying to shake out some of the smaller traders at the moment at the mid or potentially low 60K level. And then as we start to close in on the final week or two before the halving, suddenly we reverse and see a rebound back to 70K.
Yeah, I've seen this story before being here for multiple bull market cycles. You could see 30, sometimes 35% drops in a bull market. And it seems, there's times when the leverage gets flushed out on both sides, whether they're long or short, and then it resets, right, to your point. So you think by the halving, the narrative will be there, the momentum will pick back up, and we'll be in maybe better scenarios.
Yeah, it's anyone who says yes, this at this time the price will be back up, or at this time the price will be down, they're lying to you, because the truth is we check the metrics on a daily basis to see whether it's playing out the way we thought it would weeks or months ago, right? And basically at some point we'll hit a bottom. We don't know if it'll be at the 65K or 60K level or even lower than that. Uh, and when the prices start to reverse, what we do is we look for support from whales. Sometimes there will be a very mild bounce that has nothing to do with whales. But if whales start to look at that same bounce and they say, all right, this is my time to start accumulating, that's where we can look at it on that day and say, we're seeing support that this bounce is for real and it's going to continue. So it's as much as we all want to know the answers of, right before the halving, we'll be right back at 70K. The truth is we need to see the evidence of the whale's plan to push it back up to 70K first. And right now we're only on phase one where we see evidence of them taking profit, if that makes sense.
You mentioned you have some data you want to show on the screen. Would you be able to show us that?
So this is kind of our home base at Santiment. It's probably where I spend the most time to kind of get an overlay of what's going on in the markets, whether it's price returns, social volume, big volume increases, overall market cap increases or decreases. And right now, what we're seeing is a big jump actually in social volume. Mostly, this is a 30-day sample size. So what we're doing is looking at the past 30 days compared to the previous 30 days, going back to mostly February. And everything has been talked about a lot more over the past month. Bitcoin, Ethereum, everything here in bright green means there's an increase in overall interest and discussions, which makes sense because March was the most volatile month we've seen in a long time. And we saw an all-time high for Bitcoin. So of course, the media is going to really expand the amount of interest just by their articles that have come out. And interestingly, during this past 30-day span, Bitcoin's actually barely moved. Yeah, I mean, 3 weeks ago, it was above 70K, got up to a little above 72. And now it's actually only showing a plus 4.5% increase in the past 30 days. There's actually about roughly half of these assets that are down in the last 30 days. And then you have several outliers like WIF, the popular meme coin that's been jumping up the ranks. Core has been going nuts. Maker has been doing very well. AI assets like Jupiter, here's another meme coin, Floki at 42%. But you got the idea. They've kind of been all over the place. And we have seen a pretty big cycle that's occurred between sectors. It's kind of jumped between AI projects going nuts, then they cool off and suddenly meme coins go nuts. And right now, it's actually all about real world assets, which many people on Twitter and Telegram, Discord, Reddit, all those social channels that we track, they've been discussing RWAs a lot. And there's just tons of new projects I've noticed that are coming out every day related to it because it's such a new sector relative to the other ones I named. So really, in short, it's kind of been a game of keeping Bitcoin afloat while the profits being distributed from the past 5 months, going back to mid-October when Bitcoin was below 30K, those profits are still kind of being circulated into all these other altcoins based on, the powers that be and what they choose to pump and what sectors they're focused on any given day.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to ask you about that. Are you seeing the circulation of the capital and liquidity jumping from Bitcoin to different altcoin categories? Because we saw meme coins going nuts. Some AI coins have been doing incredibly well. And then now you're saying it's looking like it's going to real world asset tokenization theme altcoins, which is fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. The latest is definitely all about real world assets. It's loading some watch lists here that we have pre-compiled on Santiment. And you can see everything's down, right? So it's kind of a jumbled mess over the past 7 days, but real world assets are down a little bit less than everyone else because they had better success at the early part of this past week. If I open up this watch list, I'll just put it in a separate tab here. We can actually just have infographics loaded. Let's just look at social volume price charts. So there are still some projects that are surging, even in the past day while markets have been flushing. That says something about the strength of the sector right now. If we go back to the past 7 days, much more of a mixed bag. And if we go back 30 days, that's when you can really see the effects of so many of these assets and their market cap growths. Proppy up 4x in the past 30 days. Goldfinch a little bit less than that. Klima up almost 5x in the past 30 days. I mean, these are just enormous surges that attribute to the massive growing interest in RWAs right now.
Let's jump to meme coins because I know there's a lot of people who are very interested in meme coins. It's a hot sector. It seems every day there's some new meme coin that's popping up, whether it's cat, dog, this hat, that hat. I don't know. It's wild, man. It's fascinating from a social standpoint. I think there's going to be studies on these things with meme
Oh yeah.
stocks and meme coins. But what are you seeing here with meme coins?
Yeah, I mean, first off, from a pure understanding of meme coins, uh, there's it really separates the kinds of traders in crypto because you have the OGs and the people who are in it for the tech who can't stand meme coins because meme coins are the uh, polar opposite of what crypto should be about in terms of their perspective. Some will argue that there's a few meme coins out there that are actually doing something positive for the ecosystem, but they tend to be few and far between, regardless of your opinion on where future prices go. That's generally accepted. That meme coins are kind of there to be speculative, almost celebrations of the power of the crypto community. They're kind of the microcosm of what the power of speculation and crowd think can
Mm.
be. And when we were at the peak of this bull cycle, which was probably around early March to mid-March, right when Bitcoin was peaking around 72 to 73K, that's when you saw enormous gains from Shiba, from Dog with Hat, Pepe, Bonk, all sorts of projects here. Now you can see over the past 24 hours, they're almost all universally down. But I guarantee if I go back 30 days, most are still going to be up, especially here at the top.
Mm.
And to me, and most of the Santiment team, we believe that when you hit that cycle when meme coins are really decoupling from the rest of the markets, that's usually the final wave before a correction, because it's the stage in which sentiment is fully taking over and the logic and pragmatism of the markets, for however much you think there is, have kind of exited and been left with pure chaos and decision making as to what people should do with all of their profits from the past few months. Kind of like what we saw in 2021 with Doge way back when.
Yeah, and look, it's amazing. Doge is holding the number 8 spot on the market cap list, which I can't believe it, man. It's rising. So which meme coins over the past 30 days were the biggest gainers?
Yeah, as mentioned, WIF was right there at the top, and TokenFi is right there with it. I don't know as much about TokenFi and how related it is to the meme coin sector, but it is deemed a meme coin based on the sources that we've used to compile these watch lists. But these are the top two, and then Toshi has been a recent gainer. As we saw in the 1 day chart, it's one of the only ones that's actually still putting out market cap growth right now. So those are the three to probably keep an eye on, whether you're longing or shorting. The biggest gainers in the past 30 days are basically implying the highest probability of continued volatility if you like big jumps in either direction.
Hmm. Now, question for you. A lot of these meme coins are on Solana. What correlation to Solana's price movement are these meme coins having? If
Yeah, definitely a ton. I mean, we saw Solana briefly breach $200. What was it? Maybe 3 days ago from the time we're recording this.
Mhm.
And During that time, we did see some temporary jumps from some of these assets, and I believe that it's kind of twofold, kind of like the many ERC20s out there that kind of help Ethereum get a boost in market cap from time to time and keep it in the number two spot. I think the same is kind of going on with Solana, where it really it was one of the most consistent growers throughout the bull cycle that started back in mid-October, in large part due to the growth of some of these meme coins that are being powered by the blockchain tech of Solana.
Wow. Uh, you gave a great analogy there where even going back to the ICO days, the RC20 on Ethereum, the benefits it got from that, and now for Solana, but it's mostly meme coins, which I still struggle to accept meme coins. I'm not hating. It's just, it's not for me. And I see the speculation that's happening, the excess speculation, and it worries me for some new investors, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, whether you're pro or anti meme coin, the acknowledgement of their existence and how much they can impact the markets, it'll objectively make you a better trader to understand, where we are in the cycle when you start to see these coins that you either like or dislike. If they're pumping, it's usually fasten your seatbelt time. So there's a lot of knowledge to be had there.
For sure. Now let's talk about AI themed tokens. Some of those have been ripping. I personally hold like Fetch.ai and Render. And those have been ripping. And there was news of Fetch and Synthetics and some other ones merging and so forth. But those have been some big gainers as well.
Yeah, Ocean, I believe, right? Fetch, Ocean, and one other one that may be slipping my mind. We just reported on it the other day, so I
Synthetics,
should know it. I
something
don't know
like
if it was synthetics. I want to say it was something. Maybe it was. I don't want to be wrong, but yeah, that merge that became official at the end of March, that definitely saw it resulted in some big gains. And you mentioned Render out there. Even before the altcoin boom, I mean, throughout 2023, I noticed that it was really doing exceedingly well compared to the rest of the altcoin market.
that.
So I would continue to keep an eye on that one as a strong contender. Um, it's currently the 35th ranked market cap asset. It's ERC20 based, and it has a lot to do with cloud computing, which is, of course, a technology that's been getting a ton of improvement and innovation in just the last year with the emergence of AI.
Mm. Yeah, it's fascinating. Have you seen anything, and this is, kind of off the cuff here, anything with GameFi? There's been a lot of talks about gaming tokens. Some did well in the last bull market, like Axie Infinity. But I honestly haven't seen much this cycle, or maybe it's, later on in the bull market, we might see something like that.
Yeah, I'm checking it out on our charts page, which I can briefly touch on and look at Bitcoin in a moment. But just looking at GameFi, so it's not an ERC20, meaning Santiment has more limited data on it. But we do have some of the social elements and the weighted sentiment metric, which is super helpful when kind of deciding how close we are to a top or bottom. They're more or less neutral right now. I see that it's been getting just crushed over the past 3 to 4 weeks or so here, down
Mm.
about 38% since March 8th when it hit that top. Um, but it is starting to see, so this metric right here, as I make the chart a bit larger, this is our social dominance chart, or
Mm.
metric, I should say, which indicates what percentage of overall discussions in crypto are specifically related to GameFi right now. And it's starting to climb a little bit. You can see way back here in mid-January, tons of discussions were going on related to GameFi. I'm pretty sure this was when it kind of hit the mainstream and a lot of people discovered it for the first time. Well, naturally, it hit a top during the time when the mainstream was kind of getting euphoric about it. And it hit this big top right here, got above $12 temporarily, and then fell all the way down to a little over $8 just 2 weeks or so later. So that was a result of the crowd becoming too bullish toward an asset. And the same can come true where the crowd starts talking about it a lot when it's on its way down. I remember Ripple was a great example of that during its SEC lawsuit
Mm.
throughout 2022 and early 2023 or so. The price of Ripple was really falling behind a lot of other assets, and people started to really talk about how it's a scam coin, centralization. It could never work as a legitimate asset. And boom, right when all that FUD came in, price goes up like crazy. And we could see something similar here with GameFi as the social dominance has really started to grow. And if it gets back up to this level, where it's being talked about at a pretty high frequency relative to its usual frequency,
Mm.
that's a sign that the FUD is taking over and you're in a good spot to jump in on the bounce.
So, question for you. Can you use this social data that Santiment provides to kind of be the contrarian? The herd is thinking one way versus the other and plan accordingly. Obviously, it's not the only metric you want to look at, right? You got to look at multiple things. But to your point, things get so negative that it's like, okay, we know how markets work. It's about to maybe move up, or the herd and everybody's euphoric about it, and then it's about to go down.
Yeah, 100%. We're big on being contrarians to the crowd think of the markets. Uh, there are certain times where the crowd becomes almost universally bearish or universally bullish toward the markets, and those are the times when markets get most predictable. Most of the time, there's a bunch of bulls and bears wrestling with each other, and that's normal. But when you see extremes, like right when FTX collapsed, or 3 weeks ago when Bitcoin was hitting its all-time high and everyone was celebrating, those are the times where you can, in the FTX case, buy with confidence because everyone else is writing off Bitcoin at 16K, or you can take some profit with confidence knowing everyone is celebrating at 70K and thinking it's going to go straight to 100K. So
Mm.
those are some extreme examples of it. But we also have a bunch of niche examples on this trending coins page where every day we are updating on the assets that are getting the most attention relative to their normal amount of attention. You
Mm.
can see ENA has been getting a ton of discussion. CAT, these are a lot of like obscure assets out there. Some of you may know them. Obviously, Tether,
Mm.
which generally gets discussed a lot when people are having FUD toward its liquidity or something like that, right? People are getting paranoid over whether they should hold Tether at all. And then you see Bitcoin here at number 5, meaning even compared to its normal state of discussion, Bitcoin's getting a lot more than usual right now. And that's almost certainly due to the amount of dumping that the market cap has been seeing the last week or so. And
Mm.
you can see an AI generated bearish summary of why and a bullish summary of why. And then generally if it's funny, if we looked at this for the last 5 months, it would mostly be just the most pumping assets at that time. They'd be this top 10 countdown would be full of those,
Yeah.
with a bunch of meters pointing to how bullish the crowd is. And those were usually prime indicators that we were about to see a top, and that asset was about to go south. So
Mm.
you'll see a lot of those once the recovery starts to happen.
I love that. And I look at this every day now that I have a Santiment account, looking at what's trending, how bullish or bearish people are. It's so insightful. And, as you were mentioning earlier, it just makes you a better trader and even an investor because you're basing your decisions on data, not your emotions or what you think, your bias or whatever it is. Just like, what is the data actually saying?
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't take for granted what TA traders do. We even have metrics like RSI and basic trading volume analysis and stuff like that. But when you can combine what you're finding with the TA analysis and put it to use with your understanding of the crowd sentiment at any given time to see how greedy or how fearful people are getting, it really magnifies your success rate and how precise you can be with calling those tops and bottoms accurately.
Mm. Um, I know we're running up on time here. Is there anything else you're seeing for like, let's say Bitcoin or Ethereum that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, just I guess it would be important to go over exactly what these big key stakeholders are doing right now. It's always going to be an extremely important element to understanding the markets. Just like we looked at the crowd thinking and how greedy or fearful they're getting, the other half of the main analysis we do at Santiment is what are those big, powerful whales doing? And overall, it still looks pretty good, right? Going back to February 4th or so, they were holding 12.98 million BTC. And if I hold down shift and just drag to the right here, if you look at the top left bubble of my screen, you'll see that dark green line indicates they have accumulated 175,440 Bitcoin combined
Wow.
over these past 2 or so months, which is massive. That's into the tens of billions of dollars, if I'm correct on the amount of zeros on that. It indicates that they've really had a big imprint on this rise to the eventual all-time high. And of course, once it got there, they added a little more, and then they've started to profit take a little. Like I said, it's a pretty mild profit take, but it's something to be a little bit weary of. Um, and down here in red, this is the amount of tether held by wallets with about $100,000 all the way up to about $10 million. It's kind of the sweet spot from our analysis of active key stakeholders that aren't exclusively on exchanges. Some are, but most aren't. And then blue is USD coin for that same tier. And you can see how much they've used their stable coins to purchase Bitcoin, especially starting here in mid to late January. You can see how
That's
Bitcoin started to rise. Yeah.
That's fascinating, man. And pardon my interruption, but I often follow whale alerts on Twitter where they show how much USDT or USDC is being minted, what's going into the treasury. So that aligns with what we've been seeing historically. A lot of minting happening, and to your point, and what the data shows here, they're using those stable coins, largely to buy Bitcoin. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, whale alerts is awesome. We check them out all the time and even get ideas as to what to analyze based on the automated alerts that they put out there.
Hmm.
The last thing I wanted to show here is our top transactions table, where you can actually see what the largest moves are. It's sort of like what Whale Alerts does,
Hmm.
but you can kind of sort it by a certain time range and just see objectively what have been the largest transactions, when precisely did they occur, what's the transaction hash if I wanted to open that up. And you can see like right around, well, this was the day of the all-time high, depending on your time zone. It was like March 11th or somewhere between the 11th and 13th. 26,000 Bitcoin was moved, right? And then March 22nd, when there was like an attempted rebound, this is when we saw a little bit of movement going on, which likely was profit taking based on how it syncs up with that key stakeholder line we just looked at. But you can look at this for tons, like hundreds of different assets on Santiment and see precisely what the largest transactions were and when they occurred.
Wow. This is really great stuff, man. It's so insightful. And folks, I'm gonna have Brian on like every 2 weeks to go through this data, so you can get all this knowledge and insights and adjust your strategy accordingly. Brian, this is great stuff. If I have a link in the description for folks to go sign up, but maybe you can tell us about the different options, based on what type of accounts folks want to get and data they want to get access to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone who signs up for Santiment gets a free week to just browse around and look at all the real-time metrics and full history of everything that I was just showing, plus, I mean, so much more. I just showed the tip of the iceberg. But if you like it, then you can become a pro member. We've got a Discord full of special Sandbase Pro members where we talk about the markets, the staff and the community all the time. You can get 25% off of these prices for whatever amount of time you'd like to purchase with your initial. So whether it's a 1 month or 6 months or a full year, you get 25% off of that first purchase when you use the Thinking Crypto discount code. So I'd recommend that. And of course, our staff are happy to walk you through any sort of custom plan you'd be interested in as well. You get alerts, you get full access to the screener I showed. We've got special monthly and bi-weekly market reports that are exclusive to our Sandbase Pro members. So there's a lot of stuff there, and I recommend checking out the link in the description if you like what you see.
Brian, amazing stuff. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's been a pleasure, Tony. Can't wait for the next one.